What's going on, guys? It's Paul here, and today I'm going to be talking about the Lithic Ultralight backpacking stove. As you may have heard, just back in 2017, Walmart acquired Moose Jaw, and together they have released a new line of backpacking gear by the name of Lithic. They released it just a couple of months ago, and I was looking into some of the gear they released, and this little stove caught my eye because it looks very similar to the MSR Pocket Rocket, which is an incredibly popular backpacking stove, but this thing sells for only $25. So I decided to purchase one and test it out for myself. Now, right after I purchased this stove, Luke over on the Outdoor Gear Review channel, he did kind of a first impressions video of one of the Lithic backpacking tents that they released, and he had quite a few issues with that tent. So honestly, I didn't really have high expectations for this stove. However, I was pleasantly surprised once it arrived and I actually got a chance to use it. I'm actually kind of impressed with this thing. So with that said, I'll get into some of the details about this stove. Now, I did a video just a few months ago where I compared the BRS 3000T to my old cheapo Amazon stove. So I may be referencing that video and those stoves throughout the course of this video, just as a comparison. So with that said, this stove, just like those two, uses the isobutane fuel canisters, which you can find just about anywhere. Now, very similar to the BRS 3000T, which comes in this stuff sack, the Lithic stove has a little stuff sack that it comes in as well. The stove has three fold-out legs that just kind of rotate out from the middle. Those They rotate easily, but I do like that there's a little bit of resistance there, so they're not quite as loose and floppy as the legs on the BRS 3000T. Now, similar to the Amazon stove, this one has a built-in piezo igniter, so you don't have to carry an extra lighter or some type of ignition source with you. With all three legs folded, the stove is approximately 44 millimeters wide and about 71 millimeters tall. With the little stuff sack, the stove weighs in at 3.1 ounces, and that is very impressive to me, not just because of the total weight, but that is the exact weight listed on the Walmart and Moose Jaw website. So that's a very refreshing change. I'm used to gear from Walmart weighing quite a bit more in actuality than the listed weight. And without the stuff sack, it weighs in at 2.96 ounces. At that weight, it is about 2 ounces heavier than the BRS 3000T, but it is about 0.8 ounces lighter than the Amazon stove, despite the fact that this is a larger stove. Now, when I originally purchased this stove from Moose Jaw, it was $25, and at the time it was the same price on both the Moose Jaw and the Walmart website. But just before recording this video, I double checked, and it's still $25 on Moose Jaw, but it was actually showing up as $21 on the Walmart website. So I don't know if that's something temporary or if that's a permanent price change, but either way, I'll leave a link in the description below for both of those websites so you can check the price for yourself. So as for the build quality, that's actually what has impressed me the most with this stove. Like I said, I really didn't have high expectations for it, so I was quite surprised that the legs don't feel flimsy at all. The base is nice and solid. It feels like a very well-built stove. The only thing that I would say is even a little bit questionable, and this is something that is different between this stove and the MSR Pocket Rocket. If you can see that, there is some distance between the main stem of the stove and this little section of the igniter. So I have a feeling that if you squeezed around that too hard, you could possibly break or bend this piece of the igniter. Now, compared to the other two stoves that I mentioned, this is a much larger stove, so it is going to take up more room in your cook set. But the benefit to this is that the diameter of the unfolded legs is a lot wider than the other two. So for example, with this Toaks Titanium 750, the BRS 3000 stove, the legs are almost the exact same diameter as the bottom of the pot, whereas with the Lithic stove, the legs are actually, I would say, about a quarter of an inch, a couple of millimeters wider than the bottom of the pot. Now, for a little pot like this, not that big of a deal, but when I've tried to use my big Snow Peak pot before with the BRS stove, it's just so tiny compared to this big pot that it's not quite as stable. So this would definitely be the one to go with a big pot like that. Similar to my previous video, I did a boil test with the Lithic stove just because it seems like the right thing to do in a stove video. So I went out into the garage, I measured out 2 cups of water, and I set it to boil. Now, like I've mentioned before, this isn't, a super scientific test because there are so many variables like gas flow rate and temperature, but it took 3 minutes and 19 seconds to boil water with this stove. Now, if you saw my previous video, it took right at 4 minutes with the other 2 stoves, but the ambient outside temperature and the temperature of the water was a lot warmer in this test, so my guess is that they would actually be pretty much the same. Now, I titled this as a first impressions overview video because I've only used this about 3 or 4 times so far, so I don't feel like I have quite enough time with it to actually give a full review. But with that said, just like all of my videos, I periodically try to come back, and if I've had any issues with the gear after posting a video, then I try to update the description. So basically what I'm going to do is later on down the road, if I have any issues with it, or if it's, a year from now and this thing's still going strong, I'll try to keep the description updated from time to time, just so you have more of an updated review. As for right now, the BRS 3000 is 2 ounces lighter, so I have a feeling I'm going to be sticking with this probably any time that I'm able to go with my small pot. But anytime I'm doing a trip, say with more than one person, where I'm going to be taking the big pot, this is definitely the stove that I'm going to be going with. And really, at just 2 ounces heavier than the BRS 3000, by the time you add in the weight of a lighter or some type of ignition source for this, because it does not have a built-in igniter, you're getting pretty close to this weight anyway. So overall, I've been impressed with it. It's lightweight, it seems to be a good build quality. I'd recommend checking it out if you're interested in something like this. Again, I'll leave a link in the description below. If you have any questions, feel free to leave those in the comments section. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.